Zero, we've heard bits and pieces about the new PSVR2 ever since ever since games were talked about on State of Play streams. And we didn't ever really hear much. Even when they started showing off the actual system, what the controllers looked like, we didn't hear much about price or about specs or anything concrete. Well, in a random PlayStation podcast this week, I think it's the official PlayStation podcast,
Yeah.
one of the developers from the PSVR2 just let the cat out of the bag and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, no backwards compatibility to PSVR1." And this caused a bit of a concern for a lot of people who were fans of the PSVR1. Zero, what did you think about when you heard that there was not going to be backwards compatibility with PSVR2?
My first thought was, oof, you're going to have a lot of people who are PSVR1 evangelists immediately getting skeptical and going, I'm not so sure I'm going to drop money on this PSVR2 if they're that quick to say, we're not really going to do backwards compatibility, so don't throw out your old PS Move controllers and your PS4 camera and your PSVR1 headset and processing box. You're going to need those if you ever decide to go back in time and experience those games. That was pretty much my first thought.
Yeah, like I wasn't too surprised by this because if I remember when they showed off what the PSVR2 was going to look like, I didn't see a camera involved and I didn't see Move controllers. So,
As far as the camera goes, it's going to be using the new PS5 camera, and that in itself is $60.
Okay. Okay, so then there's new technology in that camera. Then I guess that they're gonna notice the PSVR2, I guess sense sticks are what they call the sense paddles or whatever the hell they call them now. But okay, yeah. All right. So the backwards compatibility thing didn't surprise me too much. Like, if they have to update the hardware to that point, I don't see how they're going to make them work when the hardware from the PS4 PSVR required, number one, very antiquated technology such as the Move controllers and a PSVR camera, a PS4 camera that need to recognize those Move controllers. So I didn't see how... Go ahead.
The thing is just the recognition that PSVR1 used was camera-based. And PSVR2 is still using camera-based technology, but now you've also got some more advanced technologies too. Kind of the way I potentially saw it was, backwards compatibility could be done. It might be one of those things that it might require you to have the PS5 camera and everything, but yeah, just at the same time, the other thought that I had was, as well, sure, you could probably use the PS5 camera, but at the same time, you would have a lot of people sort of wondering what the point of telling PSVR1 owners that they could register with Sony to get a PSVR or a PS4 camera adapter for PSVR to be adapted for use with a PS5 and everything. But yeah, just I don't know. As someone who owns a PSVR setup and everything, it's a bit sad to see that there is no backwards compatibility. But at the same time, I kind of do understand it. But at the same time, I feel that they could have taken a little bit of care in maybe taking a, I guess, more patient sort of development cycle to see if there was any sort of way that they could maybe provide some sort of backwards compatibility feature or something. But I don't know. I'm not a VR developer, so I can't really comment too much.
Right. I wonder what this will mean for those games in the when it comes to things like Astrobot and Iron Man that was made for PSVR. Will this mean that they will update them to the PS5, PSVR2 titles, or are they going to do the remakes and they'll have you repurchase the game for PSVR2? That will be the other question. Because if they basically just update them to work on PSVR2, I can see that softening the blow to a certain extent. But if they turn around and say, hey, relive the classic Astrobot rescue mission in PSVR2, $70 please. That's not gonna.
Yeah.
That's gonna sit very well with people who have the PSVR.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if the avenue to port the games is really easy. If it's just something that you just click a button and boom, hey, you now have a PS5 version that you can give to your former customers for free as sort of a thank you for buying the PSVR1 version. Or yeah, if you're going to have like bigger production games, basically say, oh well, we're not doing a free upgrade, but you're more than welcome to repurchase the new PS5 optimized version that runs on PSVR2, and also we're using modern day game pricing, so $70 please.
Yeah. I mean, and Sony's MO now isn't to give free upgrades either. They have you charge the $10 premium in order to get the PS5 version. So, I don't see them doing a free update for any of this. I see them essentially trying to once again milk their customers to get more money to get those updates. The other thing that I noticed when this was announced was there were some PlayStation centric Twitter users and who are obviously Sony ponies, who are basically saying, "Yo, I can see this being like $650 to $700, the entire system."
Oh.
I mean, do you doubt it?
It's not that I doubt it, but it's more me recoiling in disgust of the possibility of that, because it just harkens back to just the days of Neo Geo trying to basically build their AES home console system as the best way to play arcade grade video games in your own house, and them pretty much going balls in on the marketing of, if you're considering a Neo Geo, you don't care the cost. All you just care is that you've literally got an arcade at your house. Mm-hmm. And the AES, for anyone who needs historical context, was about $600 or $700 in 1995, and that translates to almost 1.2 grand in today's money.
Yeah.
So extremely expensive, and to think that if PSVR2 is possibly speculated to run about the price of $600 or $700, and on top of that you need to buy a PlayStation 5 console, and if you're buying the disc one, that's another $500. So yeah, we're talking about $1,200 just to get into this. And for those who have forgotten, the HTC Vive Pro complete bundle that you can buy on Steam is right about $1,000, but that has the prerequisite of you having to have a gaming PC capable of pushing VR stuff.
Yes. I do not think it's going to be $700, but I get the feeling it's probably going to be the cost of a PS5 to get the PSVR2 kit. And even that is absolutely ridiculous to me. And
yeah,
as good as the games seem to look like, because let's be honest, we don't really know what they look like. These could change at any point in time when you put on when they finally release and you put on the goggles. So they might be doing some sharpening up in those trailers. But even then, to have to then buy a PS5 for $550 and then have to buy the PSVR2 for another $550, and you have to pay for each game, which is probably going to be $70 each. I mean, that is enormously ridiculous, and I don't see that being a big seller. Like, PSVR1 did all right, but it was $300. I think it was $300, correct? That it costed when it came out.
I believe it was $250, but in the game, in the bundles that included the game in the box, it was bumped to $300 if I remember correctly.
Okay. So that was half the price of the console. And even when that happened, I thought that was no, that's a bit much. Asking for, but I don't see this being a $250, $300 system with the way they're talking about it. They're talking about this as like, this is a premium experience. This is something you will want. This is something you will want to have. And if that's the case, they're going to justify it by pricing it as such, which will be, I think, $500 minimum. I think. What do you think?
Pricing wise, I'm going to be real curious on it because just if they somehow price it down to maybe $300, my first question is going to be, okay, how bad are they cheaping out on the parts? Did they decide to ditch the 4K screens and go with like a cheaper 1440p units? Are the new orb controllers using cheaper tracking? I would have just a million questions if they were to try to bring it down to a cheap price point. Because while PSVR1 wasn't too bad, there definitely were compromises due to the fact that just a lot of the VR technology was just expensive. Mm-hmm. Though, granted, it was a great cheap entry point compared to something like the Oculus VR headset and everything. But still, there were some compromises made on PSVR1, and if PSVR2 came out at a similar price point, that would be my first concern. It'd just be like, okay, where did you guys cheap out? You build this originally as going to be one of the most premium VR experiences, and now you're cheaping out on it. Just got compromised to bring this price down to this low point. And then, of course, if it keeps a price point of being equivalent to PS5, I just don't see it being a really, really rapid seller either, because, of course, most people are just going to say, really? I get a controller, a pair of controllers, a headset, maybe they bundle in the PS5 camera in the box too, and people are just going to go, and I get no games to demo how neat this technology is, and you're asking $550 for me? Yeah, fuck that. I'm just going to wait for a sale.
Yeah. I got to be honest too. I have never been interested in VR, so I don't have a dog in this race really. But I look at something like the Quest, even though they raised the price $100 recently on there, and looking at that being the best way to do VR, because you just have a standalone set that you can just pop into your head and you can play on it, and then you're good. I mean, that makes sense to me. But to have these sets now that, unless they are like really impressive, and I mean really impressive, spending over $1,000 on this set when you don't know how much, do we still even know how much they're going to put into this set at this point? Like, if this doesn't sell very well, are they going to toss this thing? Because they didn't necessarily do that with PSVR 1, but from what I remember hearing is that the sales, the margin of profit they had for the set was decent to a certain extent. So they were able to put more money into it in a long-term sense. But if this bombs, if this doesn't do very well in, like, let's say the first year, could Sony just jettison it and say, "Oh, okay, that failed. Bye." Like, then what? Like, what do we do?
Oh yeah, and that's a fair concern too, because it could be a repeat of the PlayStation Vita situation. They see low sales and they just go, well, I guess no one wants VR anymore, so just cancel any major VR projects we had, and then all of a sudden there'll be an outcry from people who own the PSVR2 kit, and Sony will then go, okay, we'll do some partnering with some major third-party brands, and those partnerships will be half-hearted at best, and then those will bomb, and then of course it'll be, yep, we tried, but no one wants a PSVR 2, so just take this thing out back and shoot it in the face.
Yep. Jesus. Okay, that went dark. Anything more to add? Hopefully not.
No, just I think that's really where I have my concerns with PSVR2 because as someone who quite loved the Vita and everything, just that was sort of what happened to it. Just the expensive memory cards, the system being pricey as it is, and then of course just Sony decided to make this campaign of, oh, we're going to give the Vita a shot in the arm, and we're going to partner up with Gearbox, and Borderlands 2 is going to be on this thing. And turned out that Borderlands 2 was outsourced to Iron Galaxy, and Iron Galaxy had to correct the shit out of it, and it wasn't that great in the end. And just all sorts of other stuff happened with the Vita that just Sony was just like, okay, well, we're going to take Old Yeller, the Vita, out back, and then all you hear is a gunshot, and you're just like, oh god, what happened to Old Yeller? We had to put him down.
Oh, Jesus. That again. Okay, I think we're going to stop this before you get too blue and too dark on this. But okay, thank you for listening to this podcast segment. The Capital Games podcast is done every week, and we post it on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as segments on YouTube. If you want to listen to another segment, you can listen to a new one right there on the screen. We also do a movie podcast called the Capital Games Movie Club. If you'd like, you can go ahead and click on that and see all the movies that we have reviewed from that point. Thank you for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon.